Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Derek from Foxtrot. Today we are going to have our first podcast ever with my best friend and partner, Carl Ream. Carl is a really good friend of mine, and as we touch on in this podcast, he's actually the person that introduced me to hunting. So we talk about our fall 2021 hunting plans. We give a little bit of an introduction as to who we are as individuals and how we started hunting, and kind of dive into some of the things that we want to achieve this year. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Our plan for these podcasts, and I'm sure they'll change, but it's just to dive into like topics that we're interested in, you know, the latest headlines on deer hunting and deer management and just all things hunting related. And hopefully we'll have some cool guests in the future on the podcast as well. But for today, we're kind of doing an introduction to us and to Foxtrot. So Foxtrot is just the brand that Carl and I started for our love of hunting. And we're trying to create this community of like-minded people that are just absolutely obsessed with hunting, and specifically whitetail deer hunting. That's kind of what we really focus on. And we do other types of hunting, but whitetail is definitely our favorite and our focus. So, we started this channel just as a way, like a creative outlet to make videos and content of things we love to do and just talk to cool people along the way. So we have some stuff coming very soon that we're excited to announce in terms of, what we've been working on, and we'll keep you posted. If you follow us on Instagram or YouTube, we'll keep you posted there. But for now, we're just having fun and making videos and hopefully starting a podcast and just talking to cool people. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And without further ado, let's jump into it. This is my conversation with Carl about our plans this year and a few other things. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, dude? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We just did some glassing tonight. No bucks sighted, but a few does and yearlings. So
Nice.
little action.
I like the new studio setup you got there. What's the antler on the back shelf there? What's that from?
That was actually the Kansas shed
Oh, it was?
when we were in Kansas. That one from yeah. So
Nice.
the biggest shed find to date, which might not look huge, but for me that's a good one. So
Yeah. All right.
yeah,
Well, first
yeah.
podcast. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure we'll get better at these as we do more of them. But I think we wanted to touch on a few things today, just kind of an introduction into each of us, and then kind of talk about our summer so far, some of the summer things we've been doing in terms of scouting and all of that. The opener is this Friday, so 3 or 4 days away. So also wanted to touch on our plans for this fall too. So I think let's start with just like a quick intro into who we are. So tell the 4 people listening right now who Carl Ream is.
To all the 4 people listening that all know me,
you
and
gotta
the one
start
person
small.
that doesn't, But
Yeah.
no, yeah. So grew up. I moved around a lot when I was younger, but grew up most of my life in Michigan, and so started hunting at a young age in Michigan, the classic route where my dad's a big hunter, so he got me into it young, which was fun sitting with him in the early years, and then so that's been around my family, around my life a lot. But yeah, from Michigan, live in Grand Rapids now. So I should talk about more life instead of hunting for a second. But yeah, from the small town of Onstead, and then went to Michigan State University, and then moved out to Grand Rapids. Been in Grand Rapids for the last 8 years, working and hunting out here. So that's where I'm at.
Nice.
For the people out there.
There you go. Yeah. For me, so my name is Derek, and I am from Mason, Michigan, but currently live in Brighton, Michigan. And actually, I used to live with Carl up until last year. Moved to the east side of the state from the west side of the state, from Grand Rapids, and went to Grand Valley State University for college, studied accounting out there, did the CPA thing for a little bit, and then ended up working in supply chain with Carl for the last several years professionally. So that's kind of the what we do for work type of thing, I guess. And then so for me, my hunting background is very different. And I wanted to kind of get into this, Carl. So, kind of how we met. We met through a mutual friend in college. It was actually my college roommate at the time, was your next door neighbor growing up, right, Craig? And that's how we met,
Right,
right?
right.
That we
It's
didn't
fun.
meet at, because Carl and I work at the same company right now, but we didn't meet at that company. We met prior to that, right?
Right. We met outside of work, but we didn't find out till after we met that we both worked at the same place.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's what it was, that we realized that afterwards. Like we met, and then a few weeks later we're walking at work, like walk by each other like, whoa, hey, what's up,
Yeah,
man?
I know you.
And it was funny. So yeah, but yeah, it was cool, the mutual connection, that is also a hunter actually, but at the time that wasn't, why we met, obviously. So
No, no.
it
Yeah.
all comes about.
Yeah. So that's crazy to think back on, that you grew up next to Craig, who was my college roommate at the time. And then shortly after that, Craig moved to Utah. I think it was Utah first, right? In like 2014
Right.
or 2015, started working for Easton. He was obviously a huge hunter as well. Um, and when Craig moved, you moved into our house in Grand Rapids. This was like right after college, right? Or I think actually even at that point I was still in college, because I had to take additional credits for the CPA exam and do all of that stuff too. So I think some of us were still in college, some of us had just started our like professional careers, and you moved into the house right after Craig moved out and moved west. Um,
Right, exactly.
so for me, I was introduced to hunting from Carl. I started hunting in 2016, was my first season hunting. So this year will be my sixth season hunting. Um, so for me, I did not start hunting until my mid 20s with the introduction from Carl. And excuse me, it's something that I've always been really interested in, but I just, as you know, obviously, that it's really hard to get into unless you have somebody that can really mentor you and kind of show you the ropes. Um, so I think it
Right.
was, 2016. And I don't really remember, Carl, how I actually went on that first trip with you guys, but I think from what I remember, from my point of view, I remember telling you, "Hey, I want to buy a bow. Like I'm interested. I want to get into hunting." Excuse me. I got like a log in my throat. I need to take a sip of water real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I remember telling you like I wanted to buy a bow. I remember hearing you talk about like these trips you would go out of state on public land every year with your family, and just all these stories. And I thought I was always like captivated by it. And I knew I wanted, and I think we'll have a whole podcast probably, or at least I would like to make a video talking about why I wanted to start hunting, but that's obviously a much longer story. But I was always really intrigued by it. And when you moved into our house, I finally had somebody that could kind of help me get started, honestly. And so I remember we went to the bow store together for the first time, and I bought this small, I think it was actually technically a kid's bow, like a up to 16-year-old, or it was a Hoyt, but it was not like it was the cheapest Hoyt you could find, I think. And I had that
Right.
bow up until about 2 years ago, and then I bought my current bow, which is a Matthews. But I remember you went there for the first time with me. In that shop was the first time I ever shot a bow. And then over the last 6 years has just been, the rest is history for me. I've gotten completely obsessed with it, to the point where it's unhealthy. And 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 I find, and like for me personally, as someone that did not grow up hunting and no one in my family hunts, and I started in my mid 20s, I find I talk to a lot of people that I know are in the same boat, that they're interested, they want to get started for various different reasons, and they just don't have the means to do it. There's this high barrier to entry, I think, at least in my experience. So having someone like you was huge. Honestly, changed my life really, because hunting has changed my life, and I would have never started hunting without you. So I know that was a little long winded, but and I could talk a lot more about that, but so my introduction to hunting was through Carl, and when I was 20, in my mid 20s. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. What do you remember about the very early like years of that back in 2016?
yeah. Well, it's funny because I moved in to the house with you guys in October, I think it was. And so, of course, I moved in during hunting season. So, Craig, being a hunter as well, talking about it before he moved out. And then in November, we would have gone on our trip to Ohio that year with my family, like just me and my brothers and dad and uncle. And so that would have been a month after I moved in with you. And I think after getting back from that trip and like telling you all the stories and going into detail of it, you were just extremely intrigued, at that point, right? And that was like I had just moved in, and so I think over the next, kind of year, I, I it was 2016 you started hunting, yeah. So it was like
Yeah.
it wasn't that next year, but it was actually the year after that, after I moved in, that you know we started. You actually, because it is the hard part is like even though you knew me and I can tell you everything I know, but it's a commitment to start, to buy a bow, to buy the gear. That's the hard part about hunting is like it's a pretty big there's pretty big barrier to entry on an investment you got to make. Like you said, I mean, buying a cheap bow is the way to go because you didn't know at the time if you really would love it, right? Like,
Right.
so that was the way to go. So, yeah, I remember going to the bow shop with you and finding out there that you're left eye dominant, right? You never knew that, and you're right-handed, and then you go to shoot your bow and like find out you're left eye dominant. So you had to learn how to shoot left-handed, which it's good you hadn't shot a bow before because that would probably have been hard to transition, you know. But yeah, I remember that being pretty funny at the time. But then yeah, I think like you said, we can maybe go into that in different podcasts. But
Mhm.
I think our combination of me being a traditional hunted with my family growing up, my dad, taught me to hunt at a young age, versus you coming to it later in life because your family doesn't hunt, and the combination between us and like I taught you a lot in the beginning, but over the last few years, you've taught me way more than I've taught you because of your, research and addiction to it, right? So there's that cool combination we can, you know, I think that's what kind of helps with you and I hunting together and bouncing ideas off each other
Yeah.
as we're going on trips and hunting. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the progression
For sure. Yeah. I
that
think
I remember it.
I think we can dive. That could really be a whole separate video or podcast, and I think we should do that because I do want to like dive deeper into that. But for this one, yeah, let's. I think that's perfect for our quick introductions. The next thing we wanted to kind of touch on is just this season. So the opener, like I mentioned, is this Friday. The date we're recording this is September 27th. So October 1st is the opener here in Michigan. Um, so I wanted to talk about our plans for this year because we have quite a few of them, and I know we're both going to some of the same spots and then going to some different spots. So what are your plans for this year? And yeah, where are you going this year to hunt?
So like the first few weeks, it'll all be in Michigan, um, which I'm excited about. So I've done a lot of scouting. Most of my hunting early season is going to be around Grand Rapids, on public around Grand Rapids area. Within an hour drive to Grand Rapids for most of my spots. Um, so I'm really excited to dive deeper into you know I think public around here. I've honestly scouted and done more in the off season this season than I ever have. Really trying to drill down and figure out some better public areas because the pressure is hard around here in Grand Rapids. A lot of spots I loved that I scouted last year and then got to them and there was 3 trucks parked on the road, and so I'm trying to get away from people more in different ways. But so yeah, a lot of hunting around Grand Rapids to start, and then back where I'm from, Onstead, my parents are still there and hunt with my dad there, 1 or 2 weekends in early October as well. The first weekend in October, I'll I'll be back there to hunt once or twice with him too. So that'll be good. And that's on private there at a friend's property there. That'll be so really like all of October for me is in Michigan, and then northern Michigan and the was that the third weekend into the season up to Jackson, Kalkaska. So
Mm-hmm.
really excited to get back up there. And that'll be our first trip together this season is Kalkaska first weekend hunt together with Jack and a few others. So, we were up there when we were there 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Put up the property. Jack's been doing a ton of work out there at their place up there and getting the property ready to go. So it's fun to go up, and we appreciate him hosting us up there. It's always good to hunt with him. So I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm jacked
So
for that one.
yeah. Yeah. And Jack just sent us that trail camera picture today of the buck that I passed last year. If people saw the YouTube video, that second buck, and sent us the picture of it walking by the camera the other day. So it was cool to see that it made it through.
How did obviously we you specifically call him? Well, I think everyone does. Right, the Rain Man, because that guy can look at a trail cam picture of a buck and say, "I know the last time I saw that buck, and I know exactly who he is and where he's hangs around." But how did he know that one specifically? Do you know? Because I remember I'd have to go back and watch that video from last year of your buck. But was he a 9-pointer last year? Because the picture he sent us today, he was a 9, right?
Right. Yeah. He was a 9 today, but he was an 8-point last year. But I never would have noticed either. Like I if he wouldn't have told me in context, I would have
Yeah.
connected it. But after he told me, I looked back and forth at him, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's him. But he just knew from the overall antler structure that was consistent, and then some from some head and neck, and I think he had a few other pictures of him too, besides the one that he could tell from. But it's definitely him. So it's impressive. He is a
Yeah.
man, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's so cool that that buck is still around, and if someone sees him this year, that'll just be such a cool story to have that footage from last year and then see him again this year.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty wild.
Yeah.
But
No doubt. No doubt. So, but yeah, so that's my October plans. But then we can get November maybe next. But what's your October looking like?
so
Aside
so
from
for
that?
for me, it'll be a mix of public and private in Michigan for like the first few weeks. I was actually supposed to go to Aruba the second weekend in October for a vacation trip with Hunter, my wife, and then that actually got canceled. I don't know if I told you that. That got canceled. So now that
Yeah.
so now that weekend's open for me, which is good. I'm happy to. Well, I wanted to go to Aruba, but obviously I want to hunt as well. So I was kind of stoked about that. So I'll be in
Yeah.
Michigan, most likely hunting private for the majority of October. This year I actually got permission on roughly 200 acres right by our house here in Brighton for the first time. So I've never hunted private land in Michigan. This will be the first year, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I hate to be one of those guys that always talks about how pressured Michigan public is. And because I just feel like you always hear people say that. And it is true though. Like if you can walk 3 miles deep into a cattail swamp and think that you're not gonna see any sign of human out there, and then you see a lock-on stand that's been there clearly for at least 3 or 4 years, or if not longer.
Right.
So I kind of took a different approach this year, and I sent some letters, emails, phone calls, did a lot of different things this summer to try and get permission, and was lucky enough to do that. So I'm planning to hunt a combination of public and private for the first 3 weeks of October. And then the week and weekend of Halloween, I'll be going back to Indiana, southern Indiana, to where we were last year, where I shot that 13-point in Hoosier. So yeah, that's October for me. And then right from Indiana on November 1st, or actually I think I'll head to the next place on October 31st, I think, if that's Sunday. Is Halloween on a Sunday?
It
I
is.
think it
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
31st is that Sunday.
so
Yeah.
we're heading to
Yeah.
Kansas that day, and you might be going a little sooner, but you, Jack, and I will be heading to Kansas for the first time ever to bow hunt whitetails there. So we drew this year, obviously really stoked about that, and we'll be there from roughly November 1st to for about a week, right? So like November 8th or November 9th. I don't know
Right.
the exact dates.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to get to Kansas a few days before you. While you're in Indiana and Jack's hunting up here, I'm going to drive out to Kansas. I think start the drive Friday and get there Saturday midday to start scouting that day and maybe hunt that night. And then probably sleep in my truck that Saturday night before the Sunday hunt, and then hunt Sunday, scout, and then check into our place on Sunday when it starts there.
Yeah.
So yeah, super pumped we drew Kansas, and then you know, so I got that whole week there with you guys, obviously, and then big year for me and my dad and brothers and uncle is we drew Iowa this year. So two big draws for us this year and two big tags we have. So I'm real stoked to get to Iowa too. So it's kind of like the dream whitetail season for me.
Yeah.
Iowa's been planned, right? We've been putting points in for years for Iowa, so that's been planned, longer than Kansas. And for the timing to match up to go to Kansas too this year worked out really well, and I'm cramming both those, back to back trips. So straight from Kansas, I'll be heading to Iowa the next Friday. So I'll be leaving Kansas uh, a few days earlier than you and Jack will. That's why I want to get there a few days earlier to give me a better chance of getting in some action there.
Yeah.
So I'll have all the spots ready for you guys in the last 2 days to hit
Yeah.
that I didn't,
Yeah.
that I didn't capitalize on. But so yeah, big year with Kansas and Iowa. Yeah, we're extremely excited. We scouted both, obviously, we not obviously, but few, but so we went to Kansas in February?
Mm-hmm.
Is that when that was?
Yeah.
And scouted in Kansas. So completely different than what we're used to. Used to hunting big timber, a lot of hill country when we go on our public land trips. And Kansas is obviously a different game. More plains, wide open spaces, smaller parcels typically. So it's hard to get deep and away from the roads a lot. So it's a whole different game. So it's going to challenge us, I think, as hunters, and it'll be good for us to see what we can get into on a different terrain to hunt. So
Yeah.
and then yeah, I'm intrigued by that style of hunting there.
I'm excited for it too. Like you said, it's going to be a learning curve, but that's part of hunting to me, like that. I'm excited for the chance to just see the difference, learn new terrain, because like you mentioned, it is a lot of river bottom, small parcel, big ag, Kansas is just wide open. So trying to go deep in hill country or through a marshy, swamp area, you're not really, you could probably find those in parts of Kansas, but I know the spots that we're going to, you'd be hard pressed to find stuff like that. So I think it's going to be challenging, but I think that's a good thing. It's going to make us better overall. And yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited to get to Kansas. That's such a dream, state to obviously bull hunt whitetails. So that's going to be fun. On top of that, we've never done a public land trip with Jack. So I'm excited to do that too. Obviously, you and I mean, public land trips are really all we know, other than some small, like you mentioned, hunting private with your dad near your parents' house. And for me this year, for the first time here around our house. But for the last 6 years, at least of my hunting career, I guess you could say, or hunting experience, has all been these public land rutcation trips that we've done to Ohio and Indiana. So it'll be cool to do a new state in Kansas, but also with Jack and somebody new. I'm excited for that.
Right. Yeah. Once it'll be good. I'm excited. I mean, after we didn't draw elk tags, Kansas was our alternative option to pursue this year. So it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And hopefully he'll be one of our next guests on the podcast to talk about this monster buck you killed up north or in Kansas this year. So
He'll be one of our 4 listeners, I think. So you got a good chance.
Yeah, no kidding. And then, so yeah, after that, you mentioned you're going to Iowa. I may be going to Iowa with you, although I don't have a tag, which I'm jealous of. But my plan would be to obviously film you guys. So that is dependent on whether or not I can shoot a deer in Michigan prior to those trips. Because if I'm not at least have one tag filled in Michigan, then I think I'd probably come back after Kansas. But if I can get it done within this first few weeks of October, early season, then I will no doubt be in Kansas or Iowa filming you guys chase some bucks around. So I'm hoping that's the
hope
case.
It works out for you to come up there. Hope you get up there to Iowa too. That'd be a blast to have you at camp, since you've been a part of that hunt camp, the last 5 years now. In the other states we've gone, but just not Iowa.
Yeah. I feel like I need to come for at least a few days to feel like my year is complete. You know what I mean? Like if I'm not with you and your family on one of those public land trips, it's just gonna feel weird this year.
Yeah. So, yeah. It wouldn't feel like the true hunting season. I get that.
Yeah.
I like that.
But yeah, so big plans this year. Obviously a lot in store. These next couple months are going to be action packed, hopefully. And obviously we plan on filming and self-filming for most of it. So that'll be fun too. And that can be a whole nother thing, talking about our filming setups and plans for all that kind of stuff as well. But so I think the last thing, Carl, I wanted to touch on was just having said, what our plans are for this year. Do you have any goals in mind that you like, obviously going to Kansas and that new challenge is like something in itself, but do you have any goals that you kind of want to accomplish this year, or, that you've set for yourself?
Yeah. I think it's always good to have them, before the season. Like it's hard as a hunter. The off season's always so funny. You always think the next season's going to be your best season ever. Right. So, and that's a good mentality to have. But I think, specifically, I'm really driven this year. I think 2 things come to mind. Like I'm really driven to kill a Michigan public land buck. I've actually only gotten bucks on private in Michigan, and my public hunting bucks are all from Indiana or Ohio. Or sorry, actually they're all from Ohio. So I'm really diving deeper into Michigan public this year. One of my goals is to get a Michigan, public buck. And I'll only have October, with the Kansas and Iowa trip. I'll be gone all of November up till gun season. So, October is my time, those 4 weeks there, to make that goal happen. So I've got a few areas I'm keyed in on to hopefully accomplish that goal. I'll be hunting hard in Michigan in October. So that's the first one. And the second one is actually, it's very simple, but just get an out-of-state buck this year. The last 2 out-of-state trips, I have not capitalized. Had some close encounters, some good opportunities in Indiana both years, and didn't make it happen in Indiana the last 2 years. And then so I'm ready to capitalize on an out-of-state buck, and obviously hopefully in both Kansas and Iowa, but I'm taking one at a time. Just like, the next game of the week that you have, right? So taking one game at a time, and really, really high hopes and putting the effort to make that happen. So very, very general goals, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Nice. Well, yeah, the caveat though to the whole dry spell, to the last 2-year dry spell for public trips for you, is that like the prior 3 before that, I think you were 3 for 3 in Ohio. So, So you were due for a dry spell.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
You can't do it every year. That sounds good, dude. Yeah, the Michigan public land buck, that's a big goal. My first one was last year.
How about you?
But
what's that?
What? For me, I think I I don't know if I have any specific goals. I for sure want to kill a kind of the opposite of you. I want to kill my first private land buck ever because I've never killed a private land buck, and I'm excited to finally have
That's
permission. So I think that'll be cool.
right.
Just based on my trail camera photos and comparing the cameras that I have on public right now to the ones I have on these private land parcels, like my memory card on my private land parcels are already 20% full, like 3 weeks, over 600 photos. My public land cameras have been sitting for almost 2 months, and they have, I think the number one camera has maybe 90 photos. So just like the amount of deer comparing, the public land cameras to the private, totally, there's a huge disparity there. So I'm just excited to like hunt private and see, maybe see deer every sit. I don't know. I don't know what to expect, but I guess one of my goals is to shoot a private land buck in Michigan for sure. I also, I really want to shoot a buck over a. Oh, did your camera go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you
It's going now.
restart it? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I really want to shoot a buck over a decoy this year too. Like, that's just a goal of mine, I think, because it's a tactic that you see a lot of people use. Um, but I've used it a couple times. Like, hunters. My wife's dad has a few decoys, and I've set them up and have had does come into them, but I've never killed like a buck over a decoy. And so I think that's kind of like something I would like to employ this year, is try and use a decoy and kill a buck over it too, coming into it. So that's for sure one of
I
them.
like it.
Um, and then if somehow I could go kill a deer in 3 separate states this year, that would be just the icing on the cake. That's the stretch goal. Michigan, Indiana, Kansas. If that happens, I will be over the moon. But
Yeah.
I think it's good to set those goals and try and reach them. So yeah, I would say those are the things that come to mind for me. But I'm sure that'll fluctuate throughout the year.
Right. Right. I like it. Yeah. Something else I'm going to do this year is be more detailed with my like tracking of hunts. I would say like, have a spreadsheet built out that, I've always like tracked how many hunts, how many sits I have, but actually track, where I was sitting, what the wind was that day, what the weather was doing, and, what activity I saw. And even what I did, like you talk about decoying, even if I, if I rattled or if I grunted and then I saw a deer, like, or if I was totally quiet and, just try to get some data going, I think, on tracking my hunts. So that's kind of another goal I have, is to be diligent about tracking my hunts and learning from, every hunt's different, obviously, but start tracking those sort of things and see what you might find over time. I'm intrigued about.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think that's a great idea. Um, Obviously, you get like, I know Joe Elsinger. He's been on the Wired to Hunt podcast a few times. He's big on that. He has this whole robust spreadsheet, and it's, for me, obviously, I think I mentioned that I went to school for accounting, so I like anything you can put in a spreadsheet and analyze. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Which, the other accountant in the group, Austin, my older brother Austin, he's been tracking everyone's hunts on our public land trip for years. At a higher level of, what deer you saw and what sits and where you were sitting. But so I think, the idea is stemming from him too. He's always done that. He's diligent about that. And it's fun looking back on, in years past and comparing different trips and how they were. So I want to start doing that for myself, and kind of inspired by him to start being more diligent about that sort of thing.
Definitely. Yeah. He's really good at that. That's a good point to bring up. Yeah. He's done that ever since for as long as I can remember. It still has pivot tables showing like year by year
Yeah.
success and like wind direction and how many deer you saw. He's impressive with that.
Yeah. When you have pivot
sweet,
tables
dude.
Around your hunting. Yeah. That's
pivot, well, I think, let's wrap this up. I think that was awesome for an introduction and kind of letting people know what our plans are for this fall. So I guess one final question for you is, where are you going to be sitting on Friday for the opener? Do you have a
Man,
spot picked out yet, or is it still TBD? I haven't looked at what the forecast is in terms of wind direction, but what do you have an idea?
yeah. So it's gonna be hot. I mean, it's gonna be a high of 75 out here on Friday, and it's it's supposed to be a south wind as of right now forecasted. So, which is actually good for me in a few of my key spots. So I think I know where I'm gonna. One of two spots I haven't narrowed down to that I'm sitting. And pictures coming in this week could change those.
Yeah.
Could change my mind come the last day beforehand. But I think I know which two. I just don't know. Um, I don't know which of those two I'm going to start out with in the morning. So I've got it narrowed down to a few, those two spots, but um, still TBD.
Yeah.
I should know by now.
No, it's good to be flexible. I did see that it's going to be warm. I haven't looked at the projected wind direction, but yeah, I did see. But then I think during the week next week, there's going to be some significant drops in temps. So
Yeah.
during
Are
the
you
week
are
next
you
week should be interesting.
midweek next week? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the rut forecast, not rut forecast, but your forecast. Are you hunting Friday or just Saturday?
No, I'll be hunting Friday. Yeah, I'm taking the day off and hunting Friday too.
Do you
And
know
then
where you're
Saturday
sitting?
morning. Yeah, I think so. I think I gotta sit on the smaller parcel that I have permission on. That's the one that I just have so many pictures of, and a few bucks that are definitely shooters in my book for this year. One that I joked with you that I was gonna name Rampola this year because he's a really nice 9-pointer, and I mean I don't. He's very wide. He's not obviously Mitch Rampola, and that's just a joke because we're from Michigan, and obviously that's the whole thing. But
Right.
he's a very wide buck, so I think he's been very persistent on this scrape that I have the camera on. So I think that's where I'll be, but also flexible. I just got to be flexible and mobile. So we'll see what
Yeah,
the day looks like the night before and the morning of. Make a decision.
exactly. Cell cams are a game changer, right? One of the two spots I've got it narrowed down to. I got a picture this weekend that, out of one spot that's been really cold, that all of a sudden I got, two nice bucks on. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm sitting over there. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens this week. But I like that plan.
Yeah.
Sounds good, man.
Well, sweet dude. I think this is perfect. This is like we mentioned in the beginning. We'll get better at this as we do it. This is the first podcast we've ever done, so I'm sure we'll get sharper with our questions and dialogue as we go. But I like keeping it conversational about this, and I like talking about our just our plans for this year for the first podcast. So hopefully the next podcast, I don't know what we have planned yet. I know we have some ideas out there, but we'll see what happens. But hopefully by the next podcast, maybe one of us has a deer down by then. You never know.
We can hope. I
Yeah,
like it.
for
Yeah,
sure.
sounds good. Yeah, well, yeah, you're better at this than I am, so I'll try to pick my game up here. But yeah, we'll improve on the podcast. But excited to start hunting and filming and putting some more stuff out there.
Definitely. All right, man. Well, I will probably talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. All right.
All right, dude.
Thanks, Derek.
Later.
We'll see you, man.
See ya. All right, guys. So that wraps up our first podcast ever. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're still listening, thank you. I think we'll get better at this the more we do it and just, tighten things up. But yeah, that was fun. A fun conversation with Carl, one of my best friends. And again, the guy that introduced me to hunting. So I owe a lot to him. But yeah, so if you guys have any ideas for us or you would like to see future content or podcast topics, please comment below and we'll do our best to check them out. We're still really green to this, but excited to kind of have some fun with this and just talk hunting. So be on the lookout for more content coming soon to our YouTube channel, and we will talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening. Shoot straight, stay still.